What's going on, everybody? You've got the card board coach here with your boy, Coach Co. And team, we got a very special guest on the podcast here with me today. We have Mr. Michael Allen, aka Daddy Rips. What's going on, man?
What's up? How's it going?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. You know, it's a nice little, it's like a Monday afternoon. We're good.
Yeah.
Kind of sunny where I'm at. I mean, I guess it's always sunny in Texas, right?
Yeah, where I live, it's like I live in a weird bowl. It's like be sunny all day, and then at the nighttime, like these weird thunderstorms come in out of nowhere.
Really,
yeah.
eh?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like tropical climates. For those of you who don't know who Daddy Rips is, I'd love for you to kind of give your background. Who are you, what you do in the space, and then we can kind of dive into how you got into collecting and stuff of that nature. But let's start it off with, what do you do in the sports card hobby?
I am an online breaker, collector. I got into the space. Well, I first started collecting back in the day. I mean, Pokemon and Pogs. Like I was doing the Pogs and Pokemon thing when I was a kid. I remember my dad one time saying, he's like, you got to get over this. It's sooner or later, when I was doing the Pokemon. I had the binders where you'd flip through, and I probably had all the first editions. Which
did you ever get into like Yu-Gi-Oh or like Magic and stuff?
I never got into that. No. I went like from Pogs to Pokemon, and the Pogs thing was fun. I don't know if anybody remembers the Pogs.
Yeah, of course, man. What about Crazy Bones, man? Any Crazy Bones?
No
way, really?
No. I was Pogs and Pokemon.
Okay,
I was huge into like going and buying the slammers, getting the tubes, the big tubes of Pogs. Man, those were the days. And then that kind of slowly like transitioned into sports cards. And the very first sports cards that I remember my dad bringing home, because we were Michigan fans, is the Tom Brady. I can't remember the product it was, but it was like his like official like college quarterback like football card.
Yeah.
And he bought like 10 of them for like a quarter, and so that kind of kickstarted the sports cards for me. And then from there, I just went crazy. We would go to a place in LA called Frankinson's every Saturday before, like during football season. And we would buy packs and we would buy boxes, and we never sold. We held and hoarded everything. It didn't matter if the player stunk or it wasn't like a market back then. It was more just like,
you didn't care about the price. You know what I mean?
No.
It was just
And I
accumulation.
Yeah, the first year of product that I ripped, and I ripped a lot back then. I would spend every dime that I ever got doing chores, mowing lawns, washing cars, doing whatever I could get. I would go and buy boxes of in 2001 to 2005 was like the biggest period where I was ripping. 2001 was the biggest for me because my favorite player back then was Michael Vick. I'm left-handed, and I played, I liked playing quarterback. He was left-handed, and I loved it. So 2001 with Vick, Breeze, Tomlinson, Chad Johnson, that was my favorite class to collect. And I remember we were ripping Fleer. Fleer was the biggest product back then for football, and we were ripping Fleer hobby boxes for $40. Chasing those rookies. And so that kind of that was my first PC, was Michael Vick, LT, Breeze, and those guys. And then, throughout the years, I never really like looked at a price of a card. It was just like, hey, I like this card, I'm going to buy it. Or, hey, I like, I want to trade for this card. It was never really like what it is today, where today it's like the market and what'd you sell it for, and what's the peak and what's the low, and where's it,
10% markup, or buying at 60% comps. You know what I mean? You see that shit all the time.
It was never that. It was like going through boxes of singles and going, oh, I'm gonna buy this Chad Johnson, patch,
Yeah.
for rookie patch. And it didn't matter. Like, I don't know. It was different back then, but also we were in a different world. We're in a
For
different
sure.
market. And so after high school, which I graduated in '05, which I can't believe I'm saying that. After high school, I kind of faded away because, life happened, like college and, girls and all these things kind of, piled
Yeah.
on, and family and life, all that stuff happened. So 2018, 2019, I started doing side work for Rizzo Sports. Rizzo Sports has been around for a long time. He's a huge collector. He's now partners with the Coffee Breakers. I started doing stuff on the side for him. He would go buy big collections, U-Haul style collections for a couple cards, and the rest he just like sell off to, on the side.
Yeah.
And I would come in and help him sort them and go through them and get them lined up for him so he can go live on Instagram. And he would just do Instagram bidding. He would go live on Instagram and throw a card up. This is way before Whatnot.
It's like whatnot before whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
would throw a card up and he
How
would
did
go,
the
all right,
timer,
guys.
how did the timer work?
So, there's a delay on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like 12 to 15 seconds, depending on, your internet service. So what he would do is he would go, all right, I'm going to start it at a minute. And then he would let people bid up. And then he would, after a minute would go off, he would count to 15. And then at that 15-second, he would go, all right, sorry guys, like that's who wins.
Dude, invoicing
And
must have been miserable.
back then, you know what? Everyone was flying under the radar,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was just
Like everyone
moving
was
car.
just cool with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So that led into him starting to break. I came over one night and he had just a table full of boxes. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, this is the thing. Like, people are going to start breaking now. And I was like, breaking? What are you talking about? What does that even mean? And so, because Rizzo was super big into buying wax. He has a room in his house that I remember going into. And as a baseball person, I love ripping Bowman. I opened up the door one time and he was like, yeah, there was probably 150 cases of Bowman, and half of those were like 2019 Bowman, which is like Wander,
Yeah. Yeah.
Julio,
Yeah.
that's a big class. And I remember just like sitting there like, oh my God, this is like, a treasure room,
Yeah.
And so he was like, well, I have all this wax. I'm just going to start doing this stuff where we're, breaking it out with per team or whatever. So he would start doing these lives and I would be off the side. I would be his like little right-hand man, just sleeving, top loading, sorting breaks and doing all that stuff. I never thought I would like go on the live. One night I show up, he's like, hey, I got to take the wifey out to dinner. You're running the live. And I was like scared. I was
Yeah.
literally like shaking on the live. I'm like,
Yeah.
100 plus people in live.
Yeah.
And from there, I grew and I built my following up because I already had a card account.
Yeah.
Because that was during the pandemic. Everybody was buying cards during the pandemic.
Yeah.
If I wasn't breaking on his channel, I would be at my house hopping in other channels, getting into breaks and buying cards. And, because back then in 2019, 2020, I mean, you could get into like select breaks for like $40,
Yeah.
$50 and get a division for like $50. You can't do
Yeah.
that these days,
No.
So it started there. And then I built my following up. His page was like the stepping stone for my following. People recognized me and knew my voice and knew my name. So it got to the point, and I'll kind of backtrack. 6 years prior, I started a business where I was delivering aerospace parts in Southern California. I had a courier van and I would pick up parts in San Diego and I would drive them to LA. And I did that every day for 6 years. And it was about 420 to 480 miles a day, depending on the stops that I would have to make.
Yeah.
And it just got to the point where I was like, I can't do this the rest of my life. I can't sit in a car for 8-9 hours a day, having lower back pain and,
Yeah.
my blood circulation is shit and doing all these things.
You're eating from like truck stops and
Oh
shit, you
yeah,
know? Like,
eating like
yeah, yeah,
shit.
yeah.
I'm not eating healthy.
Yeah.
And the healthiest thing for me could be a Chick-fil-A, but even that every day can't be healthy for me,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? And it got to a point where I was overlapping. I started breaking on my own, and I started my own breaking page, and I was doing the driving. So I would wake up 4 a.m., 5 a.m., drive to San Diego from where I live, which is over an hour, pick up airplane parts, drive to LA, drop off, and then drive back home. And in that little triangle that I would make driving, I would get home around like 5 o'clock. I'd eat dinner. I'd hang out with my girls, my wife for like an hour or so, pop on the live on Instagram and go live till like midnight. So, and I was doing that for
It's
like
the
5 months.
grind, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was doing it for like 5, 6 months. And I just, at around Christmas time, 2020, 2020 Christmas time, my wife is like, you can't do both. You're not giving 100% to either one. You have to pick one. She's like, because you're slacking on this one and you're slacking on this one. So I was like, you're right. You're right. So January 4th, 2021, I was like, I just dissolved that other company, and I was like, all right, I'm going 100% into breaking. So, and that's where I am today. Now I'm break full time. I do content, I do podcasting. I'm trying to diversify myself in the space, not just be a breaker, not just take your money.
Yeah.
You know, we're also doing things where I'm consigning cards for people, where, you know, people will break for us and go, hey man, like I need a quick cash. Okay, send me your collection and we'll sell them on eBay, sell them on Instagram, go on Whatnot, do singles, you know, divvy it up. So trying to do more than just take people's money, like give back and do things that help the whole hobby as a, you know, help it as a whole.
Yeah. I think that's important, you know, like especially during the pandemic, you saw everyone and their mother become a breaker, right? Like every fucking 15-year-old who could get what retail
Yeah.
product at Walmart was a breaker, right? And like I remember myself, like I mean, I got screwed by like a few like random turds because like sometimes you're up at like I don't know 2 o'clock. I mean, I wake up hella early, right? So like sometimes
Yeah.
like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's a few people live. You check the pricing on their product. You're like, you know what? Like, sure, why not? You check the page. I don't know. They got like 2,500, 3,000 followers. You're like, why not? You know, like, send this guy $40. I'll get a team break or some shit going. Got nothing else to do while I'm like making breakfast. And you just get like absolutely railroaded by some of these like these noobs, right? So um you know, it's important that we have credible breakers out here, and you know, I'm sure that as Fanatics starts to really get a stranglehold on the industry, there's no way in hell that they're going to allow this many breakers to be present. So you know, like the fact that you're doing all of this content, all of these extracurricular things to like give like a personality to your name. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're not just
Yeah.
a guy like who rips and like you said, like just takes people's money. Like, I mean, man, some people know you for your straight up content. And I love that, right? Like a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
people that I've spoken to, I mean, a lot of the things that I've seen, especially recently, you've been absolutely smashing it. So I want to give you huge kudos for that.
I
And
appreciate
it's
that.
entertaining, man. You know what I mean? Like it's you give raw takes. It's entertaining. You say what other people aren't willing to say. Like, I mean, not too long ago, actually, the one I saw this morning where you were talking about Fanatics Live, and you know, if they want to do this right, like go talk to people who actually ripped this fucking product. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
go talk to people who are actually ripping this product. Go talk to people who care about you know, the sport. Go talk to people who are participating in breaks. Like how opening product. Like how can we get better?
Yeah.
Right. And so these are things that are just a lot of people aren't willing to really talk about. And I'll give you love for always, you know, putting your foot on the throat when it comes to that shit, man.
Yeah. I think that's important because, you know, listen, the breakers get a bad rap, and there's a lot of bad ones out there. There's guys that are scamming. There's guys that aren't communicating with the people that are spending money. They're just taking your money and moving on. They don't care. They see you as a dollar sign, and it's okay. They want that quick buck. And a lot of those guys will fizzle out because people will start realizing like, oh, this guy has no real like personal
Yeah.
attachment to me
Yeah.
as a buyer. So screw that guy. So I think it's important for people to know that. And I also think it's important, like you talked about the Fanatics thing. I just think even though the breakers get a bad rep, like we're the closest to the consumer,
Yeah.
right? They're not getting, when people want to know about a product, the breakers are most of the time the ones doing the content to tell you what's in the product or what you can hit or what we're chasing. So people are getting informed by the breakers. And I think we're just like, when I rip in Bowman and I talk about, I'll shit on some things. I'll be like, this is a terrible, like, why are you doing this insert? This is just, you know, just watering down the product.
Yeah.
And I get that feedback from the chat, from people in the room. Yeah, you're right. They should lessen this or do more of this. And I'm hoping they listen. I really hope they listen, because it'll keep like the binding of the hobby together. It'll keep people from straying away. Like that's the thing that bothers me the most, is when I hear the horror stories from these other people who are big spenders and they're like, I'm done. I'm just done. I had a bad, I have a bad taste in my mouth because this breaker did this or this company did this to me. And that big spender is gone. And you have to hold on to those big spenders, because those big spenders are keeping a lot of they're keeping a lot of rooms alive. Right
Yeah.
now we're in a very slow time.
Yeah.
Summertime always slows down.
Always.
So always, it's crazy. And I get people texting me like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, dude, it's just slow. You
Yeah.
gotta just, if you have to go through and just break at cost or just make a little bit of money just to get through and just get to football season, once football season comes around, it's gonna pick back up.
Of
So
course.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, everyone, this is buying season, It's not necessarily ripping season, but like
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
prime buying season. Like most people aren't going to be buying at this time though, because they're going to be spending money on trips, they're going to be spending money on going out, they're going to be spending money on, I don't know, like camp for their kids, right? There's so many things to spend money on in the summertime in North America, but this is when prices are out to all-time low. There's not really any buzz whatsoever. Although I will say that, and we can talk about this. The NBA got super creative yesterday, announcing that the in-season tournament. So, but again, that doesn't have any really impact on cards directly,
Yeah.
right? Like no
Yeah.
one's running out to go buy, I mean, a Devin Booker card because the NBA announces there's gonna be an in-season tournament in November. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
um, now that being said, the Wemby hype and the fact that there's actually a product that Wemby is in is a little bit different than it's been previously, right? Like, because typically when these guys get drafted, there's nothing available of them on the market realistically for people to buy into or to chase or whatever that may be, right? So people are kind of waiting on standby for the next 6 to 9 months, and
Yeah,
hype kind
typically
of,
it's like the Prism draft picks is like the first one, but nobody, once that product is gone, like after a week, nobody cares about that
That's
product.
exactly it. That's exactly it. So, I mean, another thing I really want to talk about with you is you have a huge focal point, and we've talked about this previously, but I feel like more people need to hear about this on mental health, right? Mental health is a
Mhm.
huge thing. You talk about it a lot. I think you do an amazing job of removing some of the stigmas in terms of like actually communicating. Because for whatever reason, like as a society, not just in the sports card space, but just in general, we feel like we can't talk about things. So where does that mental health focus come from you? Like what the need to not only communicate but encourage other people to communicate?
Um, I think experiencing that, going through and having my own struggles and realizing it's not healthy to bottle things up. It's not healthy to not talk about it. It's not healthy to, navigate through life with this like lingering issue going on with yourself, and all the while trying to raise a family and I have a wife and two girls. So the best that I've found is to just open up about it and talk about it and get it off your chest and not let it like fester inside of you. Because I think the longer that kind of festers and the longer it lingers, it's going to come out some way, shape, or form. And, you know, I'll give a quick story. Is, you know, my oldest daughter, her name is Emerson. When she was born with a disability. Her her right hand is smaller than her left hand, and it's significantly smaller. But she has all of her fingers. She can move her hand. She has all the functionality. But it's going to be a very hard road for her throughout her whole life. We do so many things with our hands, and you know, we come across those obstacles all the time, you know, at the park, you know, doing sports, doing all, you know, just, you know, writing, like doing things with her hands. So when that happened, when she was born, it took a very, it was a hard time for me. It was a tough time because, I thought, was it me? Is it, my wife thought it was her because she, you know, she carried her for the 9 months.
Yeah.
And it was a tough time. It was a time where I like went into a shell as a person. I didn't tell anyone how I was feeling. And I turned to, sports betting, casino, drinking, gambling, like doing all those things as basically like a cover,
Yeah.
covering
Yeah.
up my
Like a
feelings.
coping mechanism, right?
Yeah, it
Like,
was my
yeah.
coping mechanism,
Yeah.
and it was bad. And it got to the point where I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I should be grateful that she is able to communicate with me. There are parents out there that have children that can't even communicate. They can't even get their words across to
Yeah.
them because they're in a more severe, you know, position. So I really started like getting it off my chest, like telling people. And it started just by having a conversation with people on the phone. Like, yeah, like I had this problem. I had this, I was betting on sports, in the middle of the night, when people
Like
are sleep,
fucking tennis
yeah,
in Japan and shit,
yeah,
like just
yeah,
like, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
just dumb
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And that was how I coped with it. And finally, like, I just told myself, I was like, I have to be there for my family. I have to be there mentally. I have to be there physically. Like, yeah, I'm here now. I'm here physically, but I'm mentally, when I'm working, I'm not there.
No.
So if I added that extra layer of like doing just constantly on my phone and, put this sports bet in or
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
in, I wasn't there. And I regret those times. And I regret doing that, but I'm happy now that I can talk about it, because I think everybody is dealing with something in their life. Doesn't
100%.
matter how rich you are. It doesn't matter what you have in your life. Everybody is going through something, whether it could be alcohol addiction, drug addiction, gambling addiction, the lack of energy. They don't want to work out. And so I made a drastic decision, and this is twofold, by the way. I made this decision earlier this year. I said, I'm going to fucking cut alcohol out of my life. I'm going to go to the gym 6 days a week. I'm going to start fasting. So I don't eat till 12. I only eat from 12 to 8, and I'm just going to get laser focused on doing things where I wake up and I'm going to fucking get shit done. Because I got to a point where I was sluggish waking up. I had no energy. I had no drive. I wasn't going to the gym. I was feeling like I'm in shape as a person. Like
Yeah.
I even when I'm not in shape, like I'm
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
athletic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you have that feeling of just like, I feel like a blob.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't want that feeling anymore. So I started making those decisions. And I'll tell you right now, anybody out there listening, just a small just fasting changed everything. It changed my hunger habits. It changed what I wanted to eat. It changed a lot of things. And just in a 2-week period, fuck, man, I had never seen such a change in my attitude, my
Yeah.
drive, like all these little things.
Yeah. I try to encourage people like honestly, if you do nothing else, just walk. Because I find that, and again, like I mean, obviously, like you can fast. There's so many different things. At the end of the day, I mean, number one, you need to find what works for you and what you can sustain. But like it's just the just one, all you have to do is one fucking thing. One
Yeah.
fucking thing to like keep the like make the positivity start, right? And like all of a sudden you're walking and you're like, oh man, I have more energy, which means like now you're reaching for less shitty food, because you're like, I mean, typically when your energy's down, you kind of crave sugar, and specifically when it comes to like simple carbohydrates and like things that are going to give you that like quick fix, but later followed by a crash, right? So you start
Mhm.
getting like natural energy, and like maybe you go to bed at a normal fucking time because like you're actually tired because you worked out today, and which means you're waking up at a normal fucking time, like, and it's just like it's like this nonstop thing. You're like, oh, what else can I do? Like it's almost like once you start making money, you're like, you start thinking about all the things that you can kind of like invest in, Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like you're
Yeah.
like, oh wait, I have like money now. Like I'm not paycheck to paycheck anymore. Like what can I put money into that might make me money moving forward? But like unless you get into that mindset of like a positive, like, okay, I'm gonna add a positive thing into my life, it's
Yeah.
very hard to see that there's so many things you can do for yourself. And I love that you attribute like exercise as a big part of that. Alcohol, I mean, reducing alcohol consumption is a massive factor as well. I think not enough people talk about, really how many people consume alcohol on a regular basis and like how shit it really makes you feel. And again, it's not to say that you have to cut things out completely. I
No.
mean, in your case, it worked, right? And that's something that
Yeah.
you wanted to do, and fucking kudos to you. But just I think paying more attention to like how you truly feel is probably like
Mhm.
the biggest takeaway, right? Like because there's so many things we do that just kind of mask, how we actually feel.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, I'm happy. And you're like, but like really? And
Yeah.
it just sounds like from just some of the stories you've already mentioned that like you don't, you're very self-aware. And even when it came to, you were driving those the airplane parts, man, like that's, most people would just do that forever though, right? Like you might be like, I fucking hate this, but
Yeah.
most people are like, it's money, and we're not supposed to like your job or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I've heard people say so many different things, right? Like it's just, but the fact that you went all in on something that was like kind of a question mark, truly, right? Like
Oh, 100%.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It wasn't
Yeah.
guaranteed. Imagine telling anybody that like you're giving up a job to drive airplane parts to, from point A to point B, which sounds like a decent job. It sounds like a
Yeah.
job,
No, it was
right?
good. Yeah,
And
it
then
was
you try
good.
to convince, like, let's say even like, your parents or your friends, you're like, actually, I'm going to be opening sports cards for a
Yeah.
living.
Oh yeah.
Like, how the fuck do you sell that?
I know. Well,
Right?
it's funny because anytime I go somewhere and they're like, "Yeah, what's your email
Yeah.
address?" And I'm like, "It's and I don't want to say it. I go DADDYRIPS, and then they're like typing it out, and then they look at me and they go, "Hmm," and immediately they go to flatulence. They go to farting.
That's so
They
funny.
go,
That's so
"What do
funny.
you do?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, and then my wife's always next to me. She was like, he opened sports cards, and it's just hard to explain.
Yeah, of
And
course.
but then,
And then
but
they're
what's
like
crazy?
sports cars. And you're like,
Oh yeah,
no, no.
yeah, no, no, no. I was in Houston for a card show. Dude, that's so funny you say that. I was in Houston
That's the
Saturday for
most
a card show.
embarrassing part. You know that? Like that
Yeah,
one, like that. It's hard for me to recover from that because like people ask me too. Like, oh, what do you do for a living? I'm like, oh, like I'm a personal trainer, but also like I make a lot of content in the sports card space. And they're like, oh, sports cars, like what kind? And I'm like,
yeah,
no, 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 sports cards.
yeah, 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 yeah.
DS. And they're like,
No,
oh,
the hotel lobby girl goes, what are you here for? And I said, oh, there's a card show here tomorrow. And she was like, oh, I haven't been to a car show in a long time. The last time I went, it got rained out. And I was like, no, 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 no. Card show. Like cards. And she was like, oh. And it's just like this awkward thing
every
because
time.
it is hard to explain too. But then there's like this thing that I've noticed with
I think if you add like card and memorabilia, people just
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
shut up afterwards. Like I think that's what I've learned.
Yeah. But there's this thing that I'll tell people what I do, and then they're like, kind of like, oh, interesting. And then like the next day, they're texting me and going, hey, I just found this Emmett Smith rookie card. Like, what is this worth?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And,
yeah.
and then like the kid side comes
Yeah,
out of them.
yeah, yeah.
You
That's
know,
fair.
my neighbor, he didn't know what the fuck I was doing. He was like, I still don't get it. I still don't get it. You know, he's like, I went in your live the other night. I don't understand spots and teams and, you know. So one day he calls me and he goes, dude, I found all my dad's stuff in my attic. Can I bring it over? And sure enough, he had Griffey's. He had all the old stuff. And
Yeah, yeah, like, yeah.
just watching that, seeing his like joy and like his like childhood come out of him. He's like, dude, I remember my dad bringing these home, and that's the best part of it. It's like watching like seeing the joy come out of people that otherwise I wouldn't have even created a relationship with him if he didn't like find those cards. You know,
Yeah,
I would have never even talked to him. But
yeah.
now I have a relationship with him because he brought those cards over and he spent fucking 3 hours at my house. My
Yeah,
wife's like, when's this guy gonna go home?
that's funny.
You know?
So I
So
think that's an important conversation too. Is like as you know, fanatics and whoever else is putting a crazy amount of time and energy into marketing and content creation, and you know, you and me are both in that category as well. Where I mean, generally, we're just trying to get as many people just to talk about these subject matters as humanly
mhm,
possible. You're gonna start seeing, and I've already started to see, and I don't know if you have as well, but I mean, you just gave me a scenario in which you have, but maybe more, where a lot of people who used to collect are gonna either jump back into the space or attempt to jump back into the space.
mhm,
Like, how can we be better at creating like a bridge? Because I've seen it a lot already where like, let's say I'm at my local card shop and either someone calls in or someone comes in with a big box of shit from the late 80s, early 90s, and it is relatively worthless. Like, you know, no
yeah,
disrespect, but
yeah,
like this is something that they put an immense amount of time and energy into, whether it was them, whether it was a parent, whether it was a uncle, aunt, whatever the case may be. And it's relatively worthless. You know, like how can we be like the bridge so that we introduce like here's collecting now. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like because that's something I definitely think about on a regular basis. It's like how can we, because there's going to be more people that come back. Like there's already every day there's tons of people that are reinterested in the hobby because of some form of marketing or content because we've never had more of it than we do right now,
yeah.
right? So, you know, how can we be better bridges?
I think being like if you want to talk about being a bridge, I
Yeah.
think
Like how do we go from like
really
collecting in the late 80s and 90s to like breaking or like going on whatnot, or
like if
you know what I'm
you're
saying?
like are you saying like if somebody comes in and goes, hey, I
like
collect,
your neighbor,
yeah,
right? Like how do you get
yeah,
him like into being comfortable in a live or a
yeah,
break, for instance? You know what I mean? Because that's 0 to 100,
yeah,
right?
for
Like
sure. I think let's say you have someone come in your live or maybe someone DMs me. If
okay,
someone DM'd me and said, hey, I'm new to this, don't know what I'm doing, how does this work? You know, maybe throw them a bone. Be like, you know
yeah,
what? Come in the live and take a spot. I'll throw you a bone, like take a spot on the house and just feel it out, see how it works. You know, just hop in something. You know, I think it's hard with the older generation. You know, but at the same time, like my dad, he is like not very tech savvy at all, but he loves breaks. He
yeah,
loves watching. Oh,
yeah. I
oh
love
yeah.
that. I love
So
that.
during COVID, I would, we couldn't go anywhere, couldn't even fucking run outside.
Yeah, I know. Neither
I
can
got the
we.
police called on me for running around a lake outside without a mask on. True story.
That's crazy.
True story. But I
In
would go over to
Texas?
us. No, so this was during COVID. I was living in
Oh, I
California,
was
so
like,
that makes
there's
more
no
sense.
freaking way. I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
there's no freaking
No, I
way.
remember running and there's nobody at this
That's
lake. And
crazy.
this old lady sitting at the bench and she's like, "Where's your mask?" And I'm like, "What the?" And
Yeah.
she's like, "I'm calling the cops on you." And I was just like, "Oh yeah, call the cops, whatever." And so during COVID, I would drive over to my dad's house and we would sit there on Instagram lives. And he's like, "Hey, I just bought 2 spots in this
That's
divisional
so
break.
funny.
Let's,
I love
you
it.
know." And and he collects and he likes opening. He goes, dude, this is, he goes to Barnes and Noble because Barnes and Noble has retail boxes, and he will like swindle the cashier and be like, hey, I know the limit's 3 boxes, but can I get 3 of each? This is Prism and this is Select, and he'll call me and be like, I just got 6 boxes at Barnes and Noble. Yeah.
That's
Like,
so funny.
and send me pictures. He has this like mantle
Of the hall or the, yeah.
he has like this mantle in his house, and he just has all these boxes, and he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about starting a break page. What do you think? And he'll send me a picture of all these boxes he gets at retail boxes. So he loves it, man. And I like I think that's the kid side of him coming out of him.
Yeah.
When he used to take me back in 2001 to the card shows, and we would sit there and open packs, we would buy a box. We would drive down the street to Carl's Jr. and sit in Carl's Jr., eat lunch, and open packs. Oh, what did you hit? Oh, look what I hit. I remember he pulled the first ever like 1 of 1 that I ever remember him pulling was an Aaron Brooks New Orleans Saints 1 of 1 card. And it was like, we had no idea what it was worth.
Yeah.
We put it in a 1 touch, and and that was back when the Saints had a good team.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
I think that was Aaron Brooks, Ricky Williams, Joe Horn, if I'm correct. I don't know. I could be wrong. But yeah, so I feed off of him sometimes. He flew out to Texas a few weeks ago, and he brought boxes, and so we were sitting in my backyard just ripping boxes. So,
That's so great.
Bridging the gap sometimes might just be bringing the kid out of somebody, like just getting them back into like that feeling of the collecting aspect.
Yeah.
So, and that's one thing that I strive to do so much, and I don't care how much money it takes. If I go to these shows and I see kids running around, I immediately try to find blasters or hangers or megas, and I'll spend $300, $400, $500, and I'll put them in my backpack, and me and my wife we'll see a kid, we just hand them a box, because that right there, that's something that oh my God, I got a free box, and they open it up, and that's something that they might never forget, that they got that box, and that might, and then the parents are like always thankful. And I think that's something that people should do more of.
Yeah, man. I mean, the hobby is nothing without the kids, right? Like,
Yeah.
and especially with the price of product right now, it's kind of hard, for a parent who isn't in the space like full time, or to justify some of the price tags on the things that kids genuinely want, right? Like, I mean, there's not a lot of kids that want to open like hoops or like some of like those lower end products, even though they might be cost effective, and the parent might be like, oh, like, here, I got you cards. And I mean, everyone's had this happen to them, where like their parents have bought them cards and you're like, oh fuck, these are like kind of shit, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
right,
exactly.
you're like, oh man, like, okay, thank you, you're so that was like really nice of you, but at the same time, like, I'm probably not gonna do anything.
Yeah.
Right, like,
yeah, it's when my dad will call me and go, hey, I just bought this Prism baseball box, and I'm just like,
yeah,
oh Dad, go return that box, or just go give it away to somebody. You don't want to rip that.
Yeah.
And I'm big on that. Like I'm very vocal about the unlicensed to license, and putting things on the table that I think is going to be a good ROI, or I don't think somebody's going to get absolutely slaughtered on if they buy a personal. That's one thing. And that's the other thing that I think breakers should do more of. It's just be honest. If someone comes in,
I think a lot
and
of that has to
rips
do with allocation though, right? Like, because otherwise they get stuck with shit, right? Like, I mean,
yeah,
we've seen like prominent breakers talk about how Flux is the product of the year. Like,
God.
you can't possibly say that with a straight fucking face, unless you know that like that's the only way you're getting rid of this stuff. And a lot of times they have to buy this stuff in order to get like allocation for the big stuff, for like Prism, for Select, for first off the line, right? Like all those things, you need to get the the stuff that's shit, truthfully.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
top series 1,
Yeah,
top
yeah,
series 2.
yeah. Like you have
But
to buy mass quantities of that in order to get the good stuff.
yeah, of course. But every product can't be the best, right?
No,
That
I
feels like
100% agree with you, and
if
that's why it sounds like you're full of
yeah,
shit when you say stuff
if
like that.
it feels so forced when they're
Of
like
course,
Leaf certified or
Panini
certified
Revolution,
football.
I'm
Yeah,
like fucking
it's like that's stop. Just
yeah,
stop doing that.
yeah,
At least like when I put Crown on the table,
yeah,
I go, guys, listen, we're chasing kabooms. That's the only thing that fucking matters. The silhouette RPAs are cool, but we're chasing the kaboom. We're chasing, that's the type of thing that you just got to be a little bit more honest on.
yeah.
I had a guy rip F1 Sapphire with us the other night, and he was like, "What's that card worth?" And I don't know anything about I don't know anything about F1. I have it on the table because I had a few guys that were interested in it, and everybody in the chat's like, "That's a huge card. That's $2,000-$3,000." Well, my breaker who I hired, he's huge into F1, and he's texting and DMing that guy offline, going, "Listen, man, it's probably be about $1,000 card. Like, don't let the chat fool you." And that guy called me after the live and personally thanked me for him doing that. Because he was like, listen, man, a lot of people bullshit. They blow smoke. They want you to think that you're hitting a card way more than what the card's worth.
Yeah.
He's like, I appreciate that. That
Yeah.
goes a long way in business. And guess what? That guy was texting me the very next day, like, when are you going live again? I want to rip some more. That's not going to happen with these other breakers.
Like, I mean, when you see these fucking logo men get hit, like Kate Cunningham, and they're like, that's a $500,000 card.
Yeah.
Like, what are you fucking smoking? How is that a $500,000 card? Who decides that's $500,000? Like I just don't.
How many logo mans were there this year? I have never seen so many logo mans.
Can we have a moment of silence for the logo man influx? I mean, these things are they got to be glorified paperweights one day. No, like they have to.
I
There's
hope
just too many of them.
When you were talking about like the old collectors bringing in that box of shit, that box of trash.
Yeah.
I hope we're not talking about this in 15 years about somebody bringing in, a box of 1920 trash, where they're like, that stuff's trash. Get that out of here. We don't deal with that anymore. And I'm sorry. It's sad to say, but I think Panini is going in that direction. They're they're almost a year behind.
Talk to someone else who also has the same disdain towards Panini.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand. Everyone's out here defending Panini. I was like, am I seeing the wrong things here? I don't get it. Most of your hits are redemptions. That from what I see,
like and it's always the top chase.
What the fuck? How is it that like you can't get the major people to sign these goddamn cards? Like,
oh yeah.
And then it takes you a year and a half to fulfill. So there's a lot of Joe Burrow autos outstanding, still haven't been signed.
Oh, those cards are gone.
What's happening here? And then they end up like backdooring them through those black boxes and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and then all of a sudden you get offered Panini points by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, like, and Panini points aren't worth shit anymore. Because that used to be the white sparkle packs. You could, and everyone was buying up points for the white sparkle packs, and now they're like, nope, Dutch auction. It's ridiculous. And they're like I was gonna say, it's like, what are they, 9-12 months behind on all products?
At least.
We're chasing Cade Cunningham flawless box cards. The guy's been in the league for 2 years.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
He's been injured for a whole year. He's played a year and
what
been injured for a whole year.
And then they're like, we're gonna make impeccable T-Mall. Why are you like, you're taking like a somewhat higher end product and then making a T-Mall version of it? Stop. You don't have to do that. I'm really in favor for, I'm in favor for distinguishing the retail from the hobby.
Yeah.
If you could hit silver field level quarterbacks in retail, that's the, Jalen Hurts silver field levels, the PSA 10s are like $300.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that. That's a hard card to hit and select. But when they started dumping them into retail, people are like, oh, this card's worth nothing anymore. The silver field level Josh Allen's do 1,000.
Yeah.
And there's a reason, because there wasn't retail back then.
Don't exist, right?
Like, they don't exist. Yeah. It's less than 200
Mahomes,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Those cards are huge.
Yeah.
So I think they should make separate sets for retail. And you know what? Put the linemen, the coach autos, all those bullshit autos, those
You
throwback.
don't want a Rex
Why?
Ryan auto, bro?
Oh my God. Listen, Rodney Harrison, I love you. You were a fucking dog. I don't want to hit a Rodney Harrison auto in a $1,200 box. I just don't want to do it. You know, I don't want to see a Dan Marino downtown in the fucking optic box I just paid $900 for.
I mean,
I'm
who's
sorry,
even
Dan.
worth hitting? I mean, I said this openly for like a year and a half. Like last year's NFL draft class was just not very good.
Mm-mm.
And I just can't imagine ripping that product, truthfully. Like, I mean,
I think if you hit a Pickett right out the gate,
but even then, I mean, like you're
if you
counting
hit
on
it
Pickett actually
early.
being a good quarterback,
No.
though, right? Like, I mean, is this guy going to have like 10, 15 years in this league? I'm a Steelers fan. I'm not a believer, bro. Like, you
Here,
know what
I'll
I'm
ask you a
saying? Like,
question. I'll ask you a
go for
question.
it.
What if he has the exact career as Ben Roethlisberger?
Ben Roethlisberger? I knew you were going to say that. Then, yeah, I mean, then that's good. We're good. I mean,
No,
even then,
but
Ben's
even
stuff
then,
is super cheap.
but that's
Super
what I'm
cheap.
saying.
I
That's what
know,
I'm saying.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
You know,
considering
how
the fact
come
that this guy was, I mean, this is pretty legendary. I saw this morning that he no one has thrown more or had more perfect passer rating games than Ben Roethlisberger has, and he's
Yeah.
had 4. You know, like
Mhm.
this is a guy that just doesn't get enough love. He's won multiple chips, pretty much made the playoffs almost every year that he was a starter. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
and his stuff is a fraction of the cost of Pickett. It's like, how does this make any sense?
Yeah.
But I mean, I went into this
make sense.
I went into this argument this morning, and you're gonna get me fired up again.
It's all about the bump players.
Yeah.
It's all about the bump.
Yeah.
You know, imagine if you know, Nolan Arenado, you know, Paul Goldschmidt, a lot of
Mookie
these players.
Betts, bro. Mookie Betts right now.
Yeah, Mookie Betts. He's got 26 jacks. Imagine if his rookie season was in 19, 20, or 21. Oh, his cards would be doing what Ohtani cards are doing. Just based on what he's doing, you know, his stats.
Listen,
Yeah.
Ellie he's electric. He's,
Yep.
you know, big, tall motherfucker. But I mean, honestly, Jordan Walker's having like a better season than he's had. And no one's saying shit about Jordan Walker.
I think Jordan Walker is just like that. Like Ellie has the flair, right?
Yeah.
He has the I'm gonna push the boundaries. I mean,
the guy literally stole 3 straight bases and then including stealing home. You know what I mean?
Unbelievable what he did.
Unreal.
Yeah. I said it on my podcast. I said, we are in a point where Brewers Reds afternoon games are like must-see TV.
Yeah. I saw someone throw down like a ridiculous like parlay for the division winners. It was like $2 or some shit to win like $1 million. And they just picked all underdogs because I mean Arizona, the Reds, Orioles. Yeah. So like it was just like ridiculous plays.
Rangers,
and as of right now,
right?
Rangers as well. Yeah. It's currently at 22,000. They were asking it like, should I cash? And I was like,
really? Dude, take that for $2.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Because you never know what that
Arizona win the division, bro. Come
That's
on,
crazy.
Man. Down the stretch against the Dodgers, I don't know if you're going very far.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree. I would cash in.
We'll see.
You know what? And we could segue into people get greedy in the hobby.
I agree.
Stop getting so greedy. Why? If you get a card and someone's like, you know, right out the gate, someone offers you a number, 99.9% of the time, that's the best offer you'll ever get. And most of the time, these guys get stuck with the card, and then they're kicking themselves because they thought, oh, well, my card's worth. That's a you know, slap in the face offer. And next thing you know, they're short selling. But that's also
because of some of the breakers, though, right? Like, imagine a breaker tells you it's 20K card, and someone offers you 11. And you're like, oh, no, that's nowhere near it. Meanwhile, there's nothing else. There's no comps for this thing exist. Yeah. You know, like, I don't know. It's a Corbin Carroll number to 5 or some shit. Like, you're like, okay, this guy's great. But do you know how hard it is to be great for a decade?
Yeah.
Like, and then go look at those players' cards who have been great for a decade and see how much those go for. And you'll realize that, like, selling this thing for 11K right now is an absolute dream come true.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Like, look at Mike Trout. Like, people are now talking about him
is he a bust?
Being as a bust or like like he's so good, but he doesn't have a playoff win. You know, he can't carry a team, and they're probably going to lose Ohtani and not get anything out of it. So I go back to, I tell people like, oh, that's a $5,000 card. It's like, it's what somebody will pay for it,
For sure.
right? Because the higher you go, the more people are like, okay, it's worth 20, but I'll give you 10 cash and 12 trade.
That's
And that
exactly
12,
it.
and that
Yeah.
12 trade, that person's into for only like 4,000.
That's exactly
So
it. Like
it's only
maybe
costing,
5, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah. It's like how
I have
much
a class.
cash can you really get out of a deal? That's kind of what something's worth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So I say it, I see it all the time. I see it. People will DM me, hey, I just hit this card. What's it worth? The breaker's telling me it's 5K. And I just, 20 seconds of searching the card. I'm like, hey man, I think it's like $2,200,
Yeah.
to be fair. Like
Yeah.
I'm just being on. No, nope. No, there's no way that this is what the breaker said. And that's the
Go walk
disservice.
around a show with that, and you're gonna see 1,800. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's like if you're
Yeah.
seeing comps and that are 22, you're gonna get like 18, 15, 16,
Yeah.
17,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like and that 5,000 dream is out the window.
Yep. And that's the separation that people have to start. They have to change that mindset. It's not what the last comp, just because the last comp is $3,000 doesn't mean the card is worth $3,000.
Thank you.
Like,
you know,
you know,
like, and especially because a lot of people don't even take into account that like there actually might be other versions of this available, right? So like
yeah.
it's like, okay, that one might have sold 2 weeks ago for $3,000, but there's one listed right now. Buy it now for 2,500. So
Yeah.
like, I'm not giving you $3,000 when I can literally press buy it now on this $2,500 card.
Oh yeah.
Like that just doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense to me. Like, why would I ever do that? Like, if anything, like you're saving fees, right? Like, I
Of
mean, you're
course.
right in front of me. Cash is king. Let's make a deal, right? But you're not getting the 3 that was up there when this thing is listed for 25. I mean, now
Yeah.
it depends on like how badly do I want this and all that stuff. But I'm like, you have to negotiate with a proper head on your shoulders.
Yeah. I don't like going to shows and seeing the guys have cards in their cases. And then I go, hey, a guy has a card listed for $1,000. I go, hey, best I can do is 624.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And this happened a couple days ago. This is why I'm saying it.
I'm
I
happy you
told
don't pull out the comps. That I hate that shit when you're like people
oh,
like, hey, like
oh yeah. No, so I legitimately told this guy, I said, the valuation of this card is exactly 624.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, where'd you get that comp? I said, okay. And I broke it down to him.
Yeah.
I literally said, because there was no sell on the card. So I broke it down to him between the PSA 9, what the shimmer did, and I basically gave him the valuation. And he goes, well, I bought that card for when he gets called up. So I go, well, then why the fuck is it in your case?
Why did you bring it with you?
Why did you bring it with you?
Sit
the
with
guys
me,
in the
like,
minors.
just they sit with me in my office space, and like,
yeah.
I kind of forget about them until like something happens, and I'm like, okay, excellent, time to pull that one out. Like,
Yeah.
yesterday, Alex DeBrincat got traded from not Chicago Blackhawks, from the
That was
Ottawa
a big
Senators
trade, right?
to the Detroit Red Wings. I was like, guess what? We're pulling out our Alex DeBrincat. Before that, DeBrincat stays in the cases. I'm not gonna bring it around and be like, I really want this for when he gets traded.
Yeah.
Like, people are gonna look at you like, well, that's not what they cost, dumbass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm the Dallas card show is coming up in a couple of days. We'll be going to that. I went to a show in Houston over the weekend. It wasn't very promising. It was a lot of
the one day show.
It was a one-day show. It was a smaller show, but it was a lot of just like no one wanted to do anything. Nobody wanted to negotiate it. It was just like this is my price.
Everyone wanted to
I'm
win.
not.
Everyone wanted to win.
Everybody wanted to win. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll see how I love the Dallas card show. I think
I've yet to go, man. I need to.
I think overall it's the best show.
Everyone says that, bro. Everyone says that.
There's no, I'll tell you why. You know why? There's no outside influence. Oh. No, there's no outside influence. You don't have a casino down the street.
That's true, actually.
You don't have, there's no like real nightlife unless you drive all the way down into the city in Dallas.
Yeah.
So I think there's no distraction. So I think everybody goes there to get shit done.
Just business.
Yeah, it's just business. Yeah. And it's, I don't know. You got to experience. I always tell people this. I'm like, when I pull into that parking lot, I get chills. I get goosebumps. My nipples get hard. I'm like, fucking, like, I don't know. It's just like experience. It's so
Fucking go time.
It is. It's
Yeah.
go time, and there's a ton of wax. So if you're a breaker, it's a great place to get wax. And this is not even a plug for them. I don't even, I'm not sponsored by them, but it's a great show to go to.
Yeah, no,
It's
I've
the
had multiple
perfect
people
size.
who have no association with them whatsoever, and they're like, "That's my favorite show." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Fuck, hey." If it
Yeah.
wasn't so close to the national, I would have. Next one's in September. I think.
When are you? No, next one's what?
No, I
after
mean
this.
not that
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
Come
yeah.
on,
Yeah,
yeah.
every 2 months.
Yeah,
I think it's like
I
the
think it's
second
September.
week every 2 months.
Yeah,
You're going to national, right?
yeah.
Yeah. What day are you going in?
Wednesday. They're Wednesday to
Wednesday?
Sunday, bro. We're going to war, bro.
You don't have a booth, do you?
We're gonna be in the trenches. No, I can't. Honestly, I jump off my balcony before I get a booth. I can't do
Yeah.
it. Like I'm not.
I have ADHD. I can't
I
really
can't do
sit.
it, bro. I can't be. I
No.
can't be that person that just stands there and
Like waiting for somebody to like
no.
come
Yeah,
to your booth. Yeah.
exactly. Like, hey, sir, come over here.
Yeah.
like, how you doing? I'm like,
I've only done one show doing the booth.
Me
And
too.
I didn't even sit there.
Yeah.
I was
can't
like,
do it.
hey, give me those out of the case. I'm gonna go run around and try to move them.
Me too.
I had to be
I
moving.
can't do it, man. I can't do it. And then I get to just like pull off into the corner and stuff, and just like I don't know. Just
Are you guys gonna be doing a lot of content?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to set up a live stream. I have the booth. Bullpen. Mitch from Bullpen called
Nice.
me and he said, "Hey, you have
run
this
with
little
it.
space."
Yeah.
So I want to do it. If you're willing, you can come in.
Of course, man.
I want to do like a live stream type thing with a co-host and just bring people in for like 5-minute
That'd be cool.
5-minute
Yeah.
little interviews,
Yeah.
get a little questions in, see what they're doing, and then just kind of pop in and I don't know, because I talk about it a lot, how most content from shows is like post show or
Yeah.
like you see the day one content on day two.
I know exactly what
So
you're talking about.
yeah. So
Yeah.
my theory is like a lot of people at home, they want to get that like,
Well, they want to be in it, right? They want to
yeah,
experience it
they
while
want to
it's
see
happening.
it. Yeah.
And
So
that's
I think
definitely something I have an issue with too. Like, because I'm just present, right? Like, and I feel like unless, I mean, even you have someone walking around filming you, like it takes a while for them to pump that shit out, right? So
yeah,
this would be completely different. Yeah, man, I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm always down for
yeah, it'd be
fire it
fun.
up.
So
Team, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Cardboard Coach. What a great conversation. Michael, you got to let them know where to follow you, man.
Instagram, daddy_rips. We're on TikTok and YouTube.
You have
Twitter.
a podcast too.
I have a podcast. There's the Call Me Daddy is the podcast. It's on all platforms, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, anywhere you could find a podcast. So far it's being, distributed. I think I could talk about this right now. I'll do a little cliffhanger. I just signed a contract with a podcasting company out here in Dallas where I will have access to an actual studio, and I will be able to bring people in and do a more personable type interviews, like in person.
Heck.
So that's exciting because as you know, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I drop my podcast every Monday, and from Saturday to Monday morning at like 2 a.m., I'm just like frantic with clipping and editing and splicing things together and making sure it sounds nice. And you got to get you want it to be under a minute because the algorithm over a minute, there's all these little things that you have to do. And that's going to be taken off my shoulders with this company. They're going to be handling all that, which is huge because it's it's
wonderful.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I cannot wait.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. I can't wait. So, and listen, I haven't even been doing this for a long time, but I fucking love it. And I love what you're doing.
Appreciate it,
I get like inspired on your TikToks. Like I watch your TikTok. My wife will always be like, "What is he talking about?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I want to go fucking do something. I want to do a video." It like makes me want to do more content because I got and I'm going to give you a fucking huge praise. I got the idea of doing the non like podcast clips from you where you're just sitting there and I'll just click record and I'll just have an idea in my head
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'll just talk for 2.5 minutes, and then I'll just slice it down and go, all right, this is like cool. And it has nothing to do with my podcast. It has nothing. It might just be something like on my mind or
Yeah.
something happened in the hobby. And I love that the stuff that you do. And like it really is like inspiring to me. And it like, because especially with the fitness thing and like
Appreciate
staying
it.
healthy and stuff, like
Yeah.
that's so big. I think
Yeah.
it needs to be talked about
I mean, I
more.
try not to throw it down people's throat, right? Like, cause I mean, it's funny because like I mean, I have like if I go to a party and people are like smoking a cigarette, for instance, they kind of look at me and they're like, "Oh, like don't judge me." And I'm like, "Dude, I don't give a fuck what you do." Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I really don't fucking care, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I know what works for me, and that's cool, but I also don't want to force my stuff on anyone else. I do know, however, that like I've been up and I've been like down, down. And I will say that when I'm down, down, it's usually because I'm not eating right. It's usually because I'm not sleeping well. I'm not drinking enough water. I'm not going for my fucking walks. I'm not waking up at a decent hour. You know, when I'm like, if I'm
Yeah.
waking up at like 11 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock, I feel like shit. The whole day's ruined. You know, the next day's shit. So I will say that like I appreciate you. I appreciate the acknowledging and man, showing love is what this hobby is all about, truthfully. And I feel like
Yeah.
everyone should be showing each other more love. And it's not a competition. It's
Yeah.
everyone. You know, we can have
I
this space
feed
grow
off
together.
like when you say like, hey, I love what you're doing, like I feed off
Yeah,
that,
man,
and it makes me want to keep going.
that's
And
exactly it.
I know a lot
You
of
have no
people
idea
that
how
the
many times I don't want to make videos. Do you know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
wake up one morning, I'm like, fuck, I just don't want to make. I just want to talk in front of a camera today. You know,
yeah,
like I'm just like I really don't feel like it. And inevitably someone will be like, oh man, like literally like a text message will come in and be like, bro, I wouldn't have gone for, or I wouldn't have worked out this morning if I didn't see your 4 a.m. walk. And I'm like, fuck,
yeah.
like I
I know.
have to do it.
I saw
I
this
was
morning. It
like,
was like
I was
3:55. You
like,
were
I
like
have to
on your little
fucking do
walk.
it now, you know,
Yeah,
like I have no choice, right? Like, and
yeah,
then I get fired up, and then everyone's fired up. We're like, all right, then we're
yeah.
back in business again.
I had a DM yesterday. I went to the lake with the family. I got a
Yeah,
DM, and some guy goes, I just binged your podcast, and I'm sitting here on now. I'm at the gym because he's like, one of your podcasts, you're like, get off your fucking ass and get to the gym.
yeah,
Like, just do something. And he's like,
yeah.
I'm on the bike right now. I'm like so motivated. And so when I got that, I was like on the lake going, I want to do something now. Like, I
I'm
want
gonna
to go to the
fucking
gym, or
run,
I
you
want to,
know, like I'm
yeah, yeah, I want to do
gonna.
something. Let me go swim a
Yeah,
mile real
yeah,
quick.
exactly. I love it, man. See, seriously, I can't wait to have you back on the podcast. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for taking the time. Team, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Cardboard Coach. Like I said, check out Daddy Rips, check out Call Me Daddy, and you know, hopefully we'll hear from him again soon. For now, Coach Co and Daddy Rips are out of here. Peace.